right. Well, hello. Hello. So I'm going to try not to be too awkward, but it is a lot of who I am. My name is Shannon. I am 40 years old. I have been doing Instagram and YouTube under Made by Boo for a little while. I chose Made by Boo partly because it was available, partly because I do make a lot of different things, so I didn't want to stick to just one genre like knitting, crochet, sewing. And of course, Boo, that was a nickname I got from my older sister. She's the only one who calls me that, but it was just a nice little way of remembering the people I love when I'm doing things. I'm 40 years old and I currently live outside of Boise in Idaho. I have a husband of 21 years and 3 children, a dog and a cat, which is one of the reasons why I haven't done videos like this very much. Quiet in my house is a hot commodity, so figured a little bit of introducing who I am, what I've been doing, what I normally do, might help if I think I may want to do videos like this more. So when I first started on YouTube a year or so ago, I mostly just did time-lapse videos where I would set up the camera, it would video everything I'm doing, and then I would just kind of speed up the process. Start to finish, you can see everything I'm doing, but they were very much not tutorials. There was nothing really about them that I thought looked like tutorials. And then I started getting a few comments of, hey, why isn't this a tutorial? And I realized I did want to show more, and apparently people wanted to see different things as well. That doesn't really surprise me that people wanted to see other things. So I have tried branching out a little bit. When I first started, it was mostly just a way to fill time when I was looking for work and kind of stave off depression. Like, I can't just sit around and do nothing. I have to make a video. And it kept me going. So that's kind of why people make things. It keeps you going. It gives you something to make you happy when things aren't happy. In the past, I have tried podcasting before, a very, very long time ago. So I spent about 2 months doing a audio knitting podcast, and then I took a break because I had some family visiting and just decided that I didn't really have enough to say. It was really just a lack of confidence. I felt like I didn't knit fast enough to have something exciting to talk about every time. I felt I didn't have enough expertise to teach anybody anything. I am not a designer, so I wasn't out there sharing my designs. And it just kind of came down to me deciding that I didn't really want to talk about anything, because why would anybody want to hear it? And it's really kind of sad to think about it that way. This is starting to sound quite depressing. Anyways, since then I've grown up a little bit, and maybe nobody wants to hear what I have to say, but I do want to talk. So if nobody watches these, that's fine. So one of the things that I also wanted to talk about is all of the different things that I do and how I got started on them. One of the earliest crafts that I learned how to do was crocheting. I was about 8 or 9 years old, and a friend of my mother's who was babysitting us decided that I needed something to do because I just did not sit still, and she happened to crochet. If somehow this reaches you, Kay, hi, send me a message. At the time I was not very good. I didn't really learn how to do anything other than a triangle because somehow I missed the part of the importance of counting stitches. I have learned that since then. I did remember the basic skills, and now I still hold my hand the exact same way she taught me, hold the hook the exact same way she taught me. She definitely taught me some important foundational skills. somehow counting just didn't end up being one of them for me. And eventually I did catch on to that. I learned to sew and quilt. I kind of feel like that one was just inevitable. My mother sews and quilts. My grandmother sewed and quilted. It's something that was just always around me, and so it just kind of seemed like, well, that's what people do. You want something you can't get in a store, or the fabric is pretty, you just make it yourself. Knitting I started when my oldest was born. I was 19 years old and I was alone because it was our first base. I didn't really know what to do, and I just picked up a basic teach yourself to knit kit. I think it was intended for children, but I taught myself using that book. It was pre-YouTube, so luckily they had very good pictures because I really didn't have anybody to go and say, hey, what are they talking about? Or can I watch you do that stitch over and over and over again? One of the first projects I ever did was a blanket for my mother, and it definitely shows that I had no idea what I was getting into. I took these really long straight needles and I cast on absolutely as many stitches as I could shove onto that needle, and I just kept going in garter stitch, and then it was like, well, that's not quite a rectangle, better buy more yarn. I don't remember how many skeins it actually ended up in that, but it ended up being twin size blanket, and it was another lesson in the importance of counting and knowing how to follow a pattern, that some things do need a pattern, and also that some things don't need a pattern. So after I started knitting again, I kind of fell back into crochet as well. Seeing all of the stitches on a knitting needle definitely made me realize why all of my crochet projects were triangles when I was a kid, and as soon as I realized that, I felt quite dumb. But having that little base piece of knowledge that I somehow missed as a child, it definitely opened up a whole bunch more that I could do, and I'm really glad that I remembered how to do that and that I was taught in the first place, because now I go back and forth all the time between knitting and crochet. Those are the two most common things that I will do. And they've led to so many other things, including spinning. I have my spinning wheel, and it definitely just seemed like a natural progression if I'm knitting and crocheting that of course I need to spin my own yarn too. I know not everybody feels that, but somehow it just made sense, and it is one of the most soothing things I can do. I very rarely actually use my hand spun yarn, but just getting the wheel going, it is the most calming thing when you get stressed. Other than those big ones that I do, the knitting, crochet, sewing, and spinning, I've also dabbled in a lot of other things. For a couple of years when I lived in Belgium, I took pottery classes, and definitely miss doing that. If I ever get the opportunity to do that regularly, it's something that I would love to pick back up. I've done a little bit of needle felting, a little bit of beading, really just whatever catches my attention at the time. For a little while, I really liked the term creative magpie. I thought it was really cute for someone that just kind of follows the shiny objects. And then I recently read that it actually kind of means you're a creative hoarder, which is probably not an inaccurate statement for me, but it's a little less cute. So that's just a little bit of an introduction to who I am. I do a lot of things. I'm a bit awkward, and I can ramble a bit, so maybe I'll have to get a lot better at writing down notes for myself. I'm not exactly sure how often I will be doing podcast talking to the camera kind of videos, because my house can be a little loud with 5 people and 2 animals living in it. But it's something that I kind of like to be able to do. I get excited about my projects, and nobody in my house knits, crochets. My daughters do a lot of drawing, marker, painting. One of my children it's recently gotten really into embroidery, and so they'll definitely listen to me talk about it, but it's not the same as talking to somebody who's really, really excited about it. And I'd like to try to push myself a little bit. I do have my comfort zone like everyone else, and pushing myself a little bit outside of that creatively would definitely be a good thing to help learn and grow. And I mean, who doesn't want to continue to learn and grow? So I may talk about any kind of craft that I do on here. Currently I'm mostly just doing a lot of knit and crochet, but who knows what'll catch my eye in a month. And it may turn out that this is the only time I ever talk directly to the camera. I may decide I feel too silly doing it. Hopefully not. I'm working on trying to push myself into some projects I wouldn't normally pick. I definitely have a tendency to pick very easy patterns, vanilla socks, things that I don't have to focus too hard on the pattern and therefore can be just relaxing. And I tend to put off the bigger challenges, things that I haven't made at all yet. So I am definitely planning on doing a little bit more of challenging myself. I'm also planning on trying to work on keeping the projects that I want to do within the limits of reality. So particularly over this fall into winter season, I definitely got very ambitious, and it was like, I'm gonna make so many sweaters for the winter, and I ordered a whole bunch of yarn, but I was accumulating project materials faster than I could work on projects. And not only does that lean into the little creative hoarder idea, but it creates a storage problem, and it starts to be overwhelming. You don't know what to work on because you have too many choices. But it doesn't mean that I'm going on a yarn buying freeze or eliminating my stash. That might be something that works really well for other people, but it's not my current goals. So with the beginnings of my awkwardness out of the way, here's a few things that I am currently working on, and while you weren't here for the start of them, I do have a couple of projects I recently finished that I just kind of wanted to talk about. So why else would I be doing this except to talk about things? So the first project I'm going to talk about is a work in progress. It is the mini puff jacket from Pink Sheep Designs. It is a crocheted project. I meant to have this already pulled up. So we'll see if this really shows up. So it is a paid pattern from Pink Sheep Designs on Etsy. I will put the link down below. I've made this pattern before 2 other times. The first time I made it, I used her recommended hook size, and I didn't really read the sizing properly, so it came out a little big for me, and also with a very open weave, which it has a great drape. I still really like the sweater, but I decided I wanted to try to make it, again, a little bit more fitted, and with a 1 size smaller crochet hook, to see if that closed the weave a little bit. It is currently cold here in Idaho, so the wind going through there, it really kind of makes it unwearable for this time of year, but I really like it. And after I finished the second one, both of my older children decided that they would like one as well. And my middle daughter happened to already know exactly what she wanted in colors and everything. So I am using a 10mm crochet hook from Furls. This is one of their new Christmas designs. It is a tencel. I kind of like to be able to coordinate my hooks with my projects. It doesn't actually change the way the project goes, but kind of makes me happy when I do it. And the project is worked using Bernay blanket yarn. So this is a bulky weight yarn, number 6 super bulky. And so you wouldn't necessarily think it would make a great sweater or jacket, but I mean, it's like you're walking around in a blanket. So I am currently done with the back and the 2 front panels. Ooh, you can hear the static. And what my child wanted was black with white trim and then white pockets. The other alteration she wanted me to make was she would like me to turn the collar on the pattern into a hood. So I kind of feel like I know how to do it. If you look at the picture, you can see it's got a very wide collar. And so I'm kind of hoping that if I just make it a little bit wider and keep going, I can sew it together at the top and then put the white trim around the outside. That's what I'm hoping. A little bit later today, I'm going to start on that collar, and hopefully next time I talk to you, I will have a sweater with a hood I can show you. But we'll see how well my plan works out. Sometimes making alterations to patterns doesn't really work out that well. Sometimes it works out great. I'm hoping this is a it works out great moment. I have two other projects I'm currently working on. One is a very, very simple pair of socks. I tend to do my socks on double pointed needles just because that's how I learned, and I've tried on 9-inch circulars once. Kind of like to try again, just because not having to worry about losing a needle if I go somewhere with socks would be very, very useful. But the first time I tried, I felt like I didn't have anything to hold on to, so it may never be my thing. I haven't really tried much magic loop. It's another one of those things where I kind of like to push myself a little bit, so maybe one of these simple socks will be magic loop or 9-inch circulars. Maybe I'll try them and still go back to double pointed needles. So this yarn is from Muse 2320. It's a dyer out of Minnesota. See if I can show that. And this is her Mockingbird 2-ply fingering. It's an 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, in the colorway Fireside Flannel. I don't think that's really focusing, sorry. It's kind of a Christmassy color, but it definitely has that flannel in the woods about to chop wood kind of look to me. So I don't feel like it's too Christmassy to keep making now, but you can see I'm definitely not very far. I have a tendency to make a lot of vanilla socks. This is actually going technically classified right now as my car project. Ooh, I made the bag too. For me, a car project is just a normal thing I always have. It's usually like a vanilla sock or something very simple, not a lot of pattern repeats or anything to worry about, and something that can just sit in my car all the time. So if I have a little bit of time before work, or if I have a little bit of time on my lunch, any of those little moments, I can just pick it up, do a few rows. It usually means my car project takes a long time to finish, but it's better than not having a car project in my mind. Like, I'd rather have it and it takes a long time than just sit in my car with nothing in my hands. So my third project, this is the Magic Spring Shawl by Kathy. I know it's kind of weird, it's a printed pattern. I've had this one for a little while. I've made it once before. I bought some yarn from my local yarn shop a little while ago. Let me pull out my labels so I remember what colors they are. This one I got first. It is from the Teton Yarn Company. I will link them below as well. It's a 100% superwash merino, and this first one was in the color Purple Majesty. I just absolutely loved it. I do tend to go for more cool tones, blues and greens, but Sunset is like absolutely my favorite color, and this completely just looked like a sunset to me. I don't think you can really see with the focus that I'm getting, but we have some purple, red, yellow, orange, white, but it also has this very subtle zebra stripe in some of the threads. I had no idea what I was going to do with it when I first got this one. I loved the colors too much. And so I picked up one skein, so it was 100 grams, no idea what I was going to do with it, and then decided that this shawl might be a good idea. Started kind of playing with it to see if I liked the look. I did make one adjustment. The pattern that I am working on is done in a garter stitch, but I switched it to a stockinette because I felt like you got much better definition of the colors, and especially that little zebra stripe. And I thought the yarn was too pretty to miss out on that color. Unfortunately, the pattern here requires 3 colors, and I thought about doing little stripes in between of like a gray or something simple, but it still would have required 2 100-gram balls with the stripes in the middle. So I went back down to my local yarn shop with the hope that they would have another one, but not the expectation, and they did not have another one. So I finished the color with the Purple Majesty today, and I had picked up 2 other in the same brand of yarn, the same weight, all of that, but 2 different colors. So my next color that I'm going to use, I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to say it right, is Brenate, but it's a really pretty gray. You could see the zebra stripe a little bit better. And then after that, the final color I'm going to use is Last Light. So this is also kind of a sunset, but more of that sunset right before the sun goes down and you lose all the color. So I had thought of putting it like that, but I was afraid it would almost look like I was trying to blend these 2 together too much, and it would just look like I ran out of yarn. So instead, I figured if I separated the 2, it might look better. I don't know, looking at them here. Ooh. I'm now starting to second guess myself. And it's time to add in the next color. So, I'm going to have to think just a little bit more. If you have a thought as to which way looks better, go ahead and put it in the comments if I should have the gray in the middle or at the end. But those are the projects I'm currently working on. Yeah, this one may have to go in timeout for just a little bit while I decide for sure what the next color is going to be. And then I have 2 finished objects that I've finished within the last week or so. The first one is a pair of socks. So my camera only does for so long at a time, sorry. So my first finished object is a pair of socks. The yarn came from Muse 2320 in Minnesota. It is the Mockingbird fingering weight. So that is a 80-20 superwash merino nylon blend. This is in the colorway Shirley Temple. So it is part of her Sock Tales line. Last I saw, Shirley Temple was out of stock, but it is just a really cute little sock and mini set designed by Cocktails. So she doesn't do them year round. I want to say she recently did some for Christmas, so she may still have some in stock. I will link to her shop down below. I really did like the look of the cuff heel, And I really kind of wanted to do the toe with the mini too, but I actually haven't done that many socks using mini skeins for cuff, heel, and toe, and I was really afraid I wouldn't have enough. I think I might have, and next time I get a sock set, I think I'm going to go for it and try it. But I kind of just decided that, you know what, I'd really just rather not run out halfway through the second toe and pull it out. So I knit these using a very basic pattern with a no wrap heel. Most of the time I do a heel flap and gusset, but I've been trying to play with other kinds of heels to see what I like more. I usually knit my socks on 3mm double pointed needles. I know that's a little bit big for a lot of people. When I first started making socks, it always felt like the weave was so tight that I couldn't pull the sock on my foot. And so I ended up slowly moving up from 2mm up to 3mm. But now sometimes I wear my socks and they almost feel like they're baggy, so I don't know if I need to go down a size in the pattern or a size in my needles. For these socks, I'm trying to go down a size in the pattern. And then the next pair of socks I do, I might try a size down in needles. I don't like the socks to be too tight, especially if they're wool, because I always worry I'm going to break them when I'm putting them on and off. But if they're too loose, I feel like the fabric is not strong enough to really wear long. So it's one of those things I'm kind of working on. And then the other finished project that I currently have, I didn't realize how much yarn from Muse 2320 I had for today. This is using most of a 12 mini skein advent calendar. This was the Over the River, and I just did a very simple triangle scarf shawl this is the Classical Attitude pattern from Hobie. I really just wanted it to be a very simple triangle, something I could put on, see all of the colors. I didn't want anything that was going to compete too much with all the colors in it, but also be really comfortable. I like my scarves to be big enough to really wrap around and not feel like they're always going to fall off. The mini advent was the Over the River, so, you know, over the river and through the woods. It had 12 mini skeins. I pulled 4 of them out, not because I didn't think that I could make a shawl with 4 more. I could have added 4 more mini skeins and it would have been quite lovely. The other 4 were much brighter than these ones. Hold on, let me go grab them. Okay, so these were the other 4 colors that came with it. So you have this kind of fire and charcoal, a kind of mustardy yellow, a very bright green, and a brighter red. And while it's not that I don't feel like they went with the scarf, they just definitely seem to stand out as brighter than the others, or at least brighter in a different way. And so these 3 were a little bit too much, and then this one was just such a brighter green than the rest of it. So I figured these 4 would stand out and kind of make the rest disappear. And I kind of wanted it to be like a very dark, foggy woods. You know, we're going over the river and through the woods, but I wanted it to be kind of a foggy, maybe there's some magic fairies in there. Not quite the bright fire. I'm not really sure I'm describing the vibe well. I felt like these 4 didn't fit quite as well, so I'm going to find something else to do with these. I thought vaguely about using one of these for these socks, but the red and the green were just not quite right. They were still both too bright for it. I'll probably use these with some other socks and do little heels and toes, some sort of an accent for something, because they are still very, very lovely colors. And I think I'm very, very happy that I left this, other than this brown on the outside, to be much more muted, cool shades. So I think that's all I have today. If you've stayed this long, thank you for staying through my very awkward talking about myself. You can tell that I'm much more comfortable talking about the fiber than the me, but hopefully with a little bit more, it'll be easier when there is something that's the me to talk about, and when not, I can always talk about the fiber.